Hello, everybody. My name's Fleur, and I'm a policy leader at the National Housing Federation. This short video is an opportunity for everyone to meet some of the members of the independent tenant advisory panel who've been working with us to guide and support our work on Together with Tenants. They are going to share with you some of their thoughts about getting involved in resident engagement and resident voice and the difference that you can make. So let's start with some quick introductions. So panel members, if you could just say your name and where you're from. And if we start with Lynn.
I'm Lynn Brosnan. I'm from Rochdale Borough Wider Housing in Manchester.
Thank you. Reverend James.
Hello everyone, I'm Reverend James Olanipekum from Poplar, with Poplar Akka.
Lovely. Stephen.
Hello, I'm Stephen Johnson. I live in the Notting Hill area of West London, and I'm a resident of Notting Hill Genesis Housing Association.
Thank you. Val.
Hello, I'm Valerie Oldfield. I live in South East London, and I'm a resident of Hexagon Housing Association.
Smashing. And then finally, Janet.
Hello, my name's Janet. I live in Huntingdon in Cambridgeshire, and I'm a tenant of Chorus Homes.
Lovely, thank you. So we've got some questions to cover, but first of all, I'd just like to go to Stephen and say, Stephen, what inspired you to get involved in resident engagement?
Well, I've been involved in resident involvement since 2010, when I was asked to help set up what's called a local scrutiny panel, which went live in 2011. I chair my own one in Kensington and Chelsea, and that actually created effective scrutiny of landlord performance and service delivery. But I was acutely aware that actually what I had in my housing association, a lot of other tenants didn't have. And that became very, very apparent when, following the dreadful Grenfell Tower tragedy in June 2017, I've been very privy to the politics of that estate. I've got a friend of mine who lives there, and it's only 5 minutes away from where I live. And so the entire community was in turmoil following that tragedy. And one thing came very, very apparent about how the estate was managed, how residents were treated by their landlord. It came out that many of them had felt ignored. They felt they were treated as troublemakers by their landlord, and they didn't have a voice, and that was very apparent. And then when the community came together, we discovered actually it wasn't just the estate resident, it was many other social housing residents as well. So following the tragedy, the government set up the Green Paper Ministerial Roadshows, which I took part in three, with three different government ministers, I must say. They were very, very valuable opportunities because I was able to hear not just from other London social housing residents, aims and ambitions and desires to achieve improvement right across the sector. So I welcome the opportunity to join the Tenants Advisory Panel, and what I consider to be a very appropriately timed initiative, because what you aim to achieve is real change right across the sector, and it includes residents at the heart of make decision making within their own landlord. Now, there's two very hot words going around at the moment since the dreadful tragedy. That's scrutiny and accountability. And there's a saying that actions speak louder than words. So those two words now need to be put into action effectively. And the great thing about bringing residents like us together is that we're able to give our own views about what's going on in our own organisation, but we all share the same aims about making this a reality. And wherever you are in your own housing association, we would like to be able to support you in achieving improvement, how you are placed at the heart of your own organisation your landlord should be listening to what you've got to say. Really important to me.
Thanks, Steve.
Right. Thank you.
That was great, thank you. So Janet, you've got lots of experience in resident engagement. So I'd like to ask you if you could share some advice for residents who are thinking of getting involved in their housing association.
Yes, if you're thinking about it, I think the first thing to do, really, before you actually contact anyone, is to actually think for yourself, what are my strengths? What do I know about? What am I used to? What can I offer as a person to my housing association? Because at the end of the day, you're going to need to refer to that later on. And then the next thing to do, I think a good start will probably be the website of your housing association. But obviously not everyone can use a website. So we need a second base anyway. And I think in any case, if you ring your housing association and ask to speak to the person who deals with resident involvement, they'll be really happy to speak to you. They will be overwhelmed with joy at you ringing and asking them, I think, in all occasions. Don't worry about it too much. Don't think that everyone's going to have big expectations of you. But you've got to look then, when you get someone to talk to, actually find out what actually is available to you. I think, what can you do? What can I do? How much time have I got? That's very important. How much commitment do I want to give to this? Because there's a vast range of things you can do. You can do something that will take you an odd half hour every now and again. You can take things that will take once a month for a meeting, and you can take things that take virtually every week for months. So there's a vast range, and actually that's just going to be up to you. Nobody will pressure you, and everyone will help you. I think that's the really important thing. Actually, think about your strengths, your experience, and then think about looking at something different, because there's so much there. So just my actual message to you is, make it a pleasure, not a chore. It's never meant to be hard work. You're giving your time as a volunteer. You have a really important part to play because you are a tenant and you can actually tell people what it's really like. You can share your lived experience with other people. And that is what everyone is looking for now. All the people that you will join with in resident involvement will actually be working to the same aim. We are actually trying to improve life for your residents, your friends, everyone you know. And that's my message to you today. Just go ahead and have a go. You've got nothing to lose at all.
That is lovely. Thank you, Janet. And you're absolutely right that the value of lived experience is so important. So Lynn, what inspired you to get involved in resident engagement?
Right, my experiences go back over several years. I've been engaged in one thing and another, some 38 years or something now, you know, in our local Tenants and Residents Association. But I really became more involved in 1994 when the council had failed twice to secure much needed estate action money to improve our estate. So we decided as a Tenants and Residents Association that we would do our own presentation to Government Office. Scary stuff, but exciting. We created an estate profile split into 3 parts: environment, homes and social. Council thought we were asking for far too much, but we argued that our estate had had no major investment for many years and we could only but try. In fact, the council at the time was trying to get us to go somewhere else, you know, because we were on the outskirts of everything. We were invited to present our application to Government Office and we secured £9.4 million. And we couldn't believe it. It was advertised on Granada Report, so you can imagine this group of tenants trotted along to Government Office. I always remember being in that room with this huge, big, shiny oak table. I'd never seen anything shine so much with not a scratch or a mark on it in all my life. So, but then the real work began, and this is where I think Together with Tenants fits in perfectly, even though it was in 1994. We then made sure we were involved in all the planning and all the materials that were brought and all the different kitchens, bathrooms, suites, and so that people could have a choice in what they had in their homes. We'd never had those choices before. I don't know if anybody remembers those bland, horrible brown cupboards. Everywhere you went, you saw the same thing, or we wanted something different, and we got it. We worked with officers of the council, different housing departments and what have you, and it was great. And I think once they got over the trust bit, we had fun along the way as well. So it proved it could be done. We even got a brand new community centre, and I don't think anybody got a brand new community centre, but we did, and sports facilities for young people, which was great. And the young people designed all of that themselves. And I think even today they talk about the ASHI, because that's the kick pitch we've got. We've still got it after all these years. And they talk about the ASHI with great fondness, even though they're grown up with families of their own now. From there, we became an estate management board, which gives us far more involvement in all investment programs and scope for all that little bit extra. So I think although that goes back to 1994, I think that's a prime example of how Together with Tenants can work. Thank you.
Lynn, that was lovely. That is so inspiring, and it's really lovely to hear just a fantastic win for residents. That's great. Valerie, so Lynn talked a little bit about the difference you can make, but for you, what difference do you think getting involved with your housing association makes to them, but probably more importantly to you?
I think there's a number of ways a difference we make of residents being involved with their housing associations. For the housing association, they get a lot of benefit from residents being involved, because when residents are involved, they're giving them a different perspective. So it will help them improve their services to residents, because they get a better understanding of what residents, how residents view the services and what services residents actually get, rather than what it looks like on paper. Also, the efficiency and effectiveness of the operations, the management of their operations, they can tweak them because of the feedback that they get from residents, and also from residents giving their input towards that. With all of that happening and how they can tweak things, they definitely have some value for money coming out of it. So it'd be financially beneficial for housing associations to be involved. It'll strengthen their financial viability as well. If they can manage their finances, they show good improvements on their finances, should I say. And also, ultimately, it also helps the housing association and staff within the housing association get a better understanding and build a better relationship with residents. So residents and housing associations can now look at things and work in partnership, because we both want good things. We both want a good housing association, and we both want good homes for people to live in. So with all of that, of course, staff will also be happier. So that helps the staff as well. If everybody's happy, then the world would be a great place. Let's hope that can be achieved. But for me, and I'm sure with all residents of housing associations, well, all residents in general, we all just want to have peace of mind. We just want to have a happier life, be happy, contented in the homes that we live in, and just really be content, basically. And I think that's the same for all residents. But I suppose that in residents' contribution to housing associations, for me, I think the main thing is gaining a mutual understanding. So residents and housing associations understanding how, the differences for both sides. Because for me, the lack of understanding is the biggest problem with regards to services residents get and also how residents can input to housing associations, and also the understanding of how housing associations themselves work. So for residents and housing associations, getting together, understanding, I think that will help, because one, the majority of, let's say, people on the board of a housing association don't actually live in a housing association accommodation. So they do not experience the services that we get. But similarly, a lot of residents don't actually work in a housing association. So they do not understand the things that a housing association has to think about and the environment that they have to work in. So really, for residents, getting involved in your housing association will force housing associations to listen, to understand you as a resident, and also for them to get a better understanding of how housing associations work. So for residents to be involved, you'll get your voice heard. It'll also give you the opportunity to make your housing associations accountable. So hopefully, openness and transparency you'll receive from your housing association will give you that opportunity. And if you feel that's not really happening, of course, you've got the housing ombudsman and housing regulators. They're doing their part as well. So you'll have that. So basically, being involved makes a big difference. It makes a big difference to services for residents. It makes a big difference for housing associations. And hopefully, it'll push things in the right direction for the future of social housing.
Thanks, Val. That's a really powerful message. Right now, last but certainly not least, Reverend James, the floor is yours for the last few minutes of this meeting. What message would you like to give residents now?
Well, I'll tell you a story to start with. Many years back, my flat that I was living in had a dilapidated windows. Everything was falling apart. Everything was falling to pieces. I didn't know where to go to, but I had to walk into the office of Popular Aka, and I started making noise. Because I said, well, I'm paying for this. Why am I not getting the services that I require? And then someone just said, this one is very bold. Then they said, okay, did you know there's a group of residents that come together to talk about exactly what you are talking about now? And I said, yes, I'll be up for it. So one evening, I went into the meeting, into the estate board meeting. And there I saw so many residents there talking about what is not happening with their housing association. I said, yes, these are people of like mind. Then I joined in. I thought it was just my only one leg in there, but it was everything that I put in there now. So I joined. I became certainly the second meeting. I was made the vice chair of that board meeting. And not just that. Someone said, oh, no, you're too small for this area. I will take you higher. So then I joined and I became the vice chair of the main board. I held that position for 10 years. And after leaving that board meeting, I was held back. And they said, no, you're not going. You're certainly going to become our ambassador. So I'm now Popular Aka, proudly ambassador. But I want to let you know, that's just one of it. Because as a participant in everything that happens in your organization, you have an insight. I didn't realize what it entails until I got involved. I knew they had planned for it, but I wasn't aware of the plan. But if you're not in it, you don't know about it. So I want you to know that together with tenants, you as a resident can enable your tenant, your landlord, to achieve more. So it's better for every one of us to get involved. However, I know Janet said it earlier on, however little, please be involved because you'll be empowered. You have an insight, then you can change the whole thing because you have a living experience. Yes, your landlord owns the property, but that's the place to call your home. Get involved.